truly saw, arguably in my time, the best grand final performance by one person.
Sometimes you need somebody to put their hand up and shine, and for a 23-year-old, you just imagine what the inspiration that he has given every other one of those guys in that team.
I've just witnessed the best 16 minutes from a footballer in my life. Like I've never, no way in the world did I think they could come back.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Oh, he's done it again, Ricky Hogan.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the DSPN, people. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. We do a podcast every single day you can enjoy via Spotify video, Apple Podcasts, Rover, DSPN YouTube channel. Please click that subscribe button on all of them, DSPN YouTube channel especially. Every time you do that, it means we can continue to provide all this content for free. Leave us a comment as well. Again, we read them all. We try and reply to as many as possible. We've got Feedback Friday, a comment corner coming, a big mailbag section on Friday. Now, a couple of things to enjoy today. An elongated, no-holds-barred, every question asked chat with John Mitchell, former All Black coach of the Red Roses, world champions. That's the English women's rugby team. Took care of business. They've been dominant now for 7 or 8 years. Yes, the Black Ferns knobbed them in 2023 at Eden Park, but they were just clinical, efficient and brilliant at Twickenham to win the World Championship title a week or so ago. Mitch sits down with us. Really enjoyed that chat, and I hope you do too, and leave us a comment about that. Tony Kemp talking about the Kiwis' upcoming internationals, reviewing the NRL Grand Final where he lost a big bet to Lachlan and his Broncos. We'll do that shortly. But we begin the show every day the same way. It's a sermon from the mountaintop. And this one, about time I commented on New Zealand cricket.
Marty Sermons brought to you by WebWonks. Generate online leads with WebWonks. Doctors for your Google data.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
I don't love you no more. I don't love you no more. New Zealand cricket, you've lost me. And I know you don't care. In fact, it's worse than that. You couldn't give a snot stuff. In fact, you laugh and scorn at me. People like me, the older generations, the lifeblood of your support base these last 50 years, the most loyal customers in your shop during all that time. This new administration, slave to the almighty ICC dollar, beholden on bended knee to a playing group that now use the Silver Fern and national honours as merely a ticket to the endless wealth of these dime a dozen meaningless global T20 leagues. We just had the Chapel Hadley series here in New Zealand. In October, I'm not allowed to say FFS, but that's what I want to say. In October, Phil, rainy, cold October, the beginning of spring, the most unsettled weather period this country annually has. Did you not know that, New Zealand cricket? How long have you lived in this country? So you schedule what is meant to be the most prestigious trophy in our domestic international calendar to clash with the Bledisloe Cup on the same night? Are you morons? FFS again. Oh, and one of them got rained out. Really? Well, bowl my middle stump over with a marshmallow. What a surprise. 3 T20s versus Aussie. Talk about a token gesture. But then again, getting our top players to turn up these days is so difficult anyway. Oh, is it convenient for me to arrive and play? Chapel Hadley. Let me say those two names again. Chapel Hadley. Sir Richard Hadley. He's only the holiest name in the sport in New Zealand. Our greatest ever player. Our greatest ever player. And as much as Kane Williamson has done for New Zealand cricket and the records he's amassed and the courageous performances and the commitment, etc., and I got a lot of time for Kane Williamson, what, he can't be asked turning up and playing in his own hometown? His own hometown? Whatever he's done with the bat in hand wearing the Silver Fern, Kane Williamson is not Richard Hadley. He's not in the same conversation as Richard Hadley. But when it comes to next year's T20 World Cup, is he going to want to play? Let me guess. Hell yes. Hand up straight away. I guess the same as Trent Boult. I won't be surprised at all to see him turn up in India as well. I bet his agent's already on the phone to Scott Wienik, CEO of New Zealand Cricket, declaring his availability and reaffirming his own personal commitment when it's convenient. When it's a world championship and these egos are desperate to be seen on a global stage again. Because the rest of the cricket they play is invisible. That's the truth, you fellas. You're invisible. Yes, you earn millions of dollars doing it, but no one outside the IPL gives a toss about the Texas tugboaters playing the London lolly lickers. No one. Produce somebody that can tell me any of the results of this recent American League. And I don't mean somebody from Cricinfo whose job is to cover it. These guys know that, they feel that, they are desperately aware of that. I wouldn't have a bar of either of those guys next year. You can't be bothered playing the Chapel Hadley. Shame on you. How insulting to the GOAT of New Zealand cricket that is Richard Hadley. But hey, if this was called the Seychelles Islands, who cares, 5 overs a side load of bollocks with a bucket load of cash on board tournament, you'd clear the calendar. We all know that. We know that you know that. Never forget that the only reason this cash cow is available to the players nowadays is because they played for their country. You don't get these contracts for T20 solely by playing the Super Smash League in New Zealand. And I know it's their choice, all of that. But it's my choice as a cricket fan to also say that I want people to play for my country who actually care about playing for my country and can be bothered turning up when the names Chappell and Hadley are on a trophy. So good one, New Zealand cricket. I know you laugh at me and you laugh at us oldies. You scoff at our attitudes, our loyalties. You mock our historical focus. You bandy around words like Chapel Hadley like it's a marketing gimmick or some guy on a whiteboard beating himself off over. And to you it is. So yeah, you've lost me, New Zealand cricket. I still love my Test cricket and I'll be watching every day of the upcoming Ashes this summer. Real cricket. Brilliant sport and theatre that it is. But what you're doing to the game, the disrespect, the lack of respect, the fact it's nothing more than a marketing promotion for you, a balance sheet box tick, you've lost me. And I know you couldn't care less. Couldn't give a rat's backside because I'm no longer in your wheelhouse, because I don't care about your infantile TikToks and your silly gimmicky TV commentary. You don't care simply because I'm a generational fan, because I'm outside of the advertising agency's target demographic, because I'm old. So just like the weather was in Tauranga, you've left me cold. NRL Grand Final, they're calling it one of the greatest ever Grand Finals. And you've got to say, it does rate right up there. Brisbane coming back from the dead to win that last round-robin game against Melbourne, to get into the 4. You can't win outside the 4, and Penrith proved that again. And then 3 finals games. That one in Canberra was just outrageous to win that after Canberra thought they had won it. Coming back from a 14-point deficit half-time to beat Penrith, the 4-time back-to-back premiers. And then down by 10 points against the Storm in the final. And I've just been told, Tony Kemp joins us, as he always does. Kiwi legend, played his professional league in both hemispheres, former coach of the Warriors, of course, that Brisbane only led 14 minutes of those previous 2 games before the final, 23 minutes in the final, a total of 37 minutes in 3 finals games. They win it, though. And Kempy, a man of his word, because you made a bet with Lachlan, a Brisbane fan, about this.
Yeah, it did. The only bloke who had faith in Brisbane, even in the middle of the season when they were sitting in 11th position, that they could come back and win the competition. Obviously, he had a direct dial into Reece Walsh because he was the reason they won it. Without him, they don't win it. But yeah, even when he said to me, because we had a case on it, he said to me, mate, just get me some superchargers. And I just laughed at the name. I thought, mate, there's no better name for the Brisbane Broncos than the Superchargers, because that's what they did.
Well, here he is.
For the finals.
And you paid your bills. There he goes.
There he is. There you go, Lockie. Yeah. Hey? Of course, mate, a man who, if you're going to have a bet, you make sure you stump up, whether you win or lose. And
well, talk to me about the final. Was that, in your mind, and you got to reference 89 and when it was the Winfield Cup and Canberra coming up against Balmain, because that is one of the yardsticks. Look, there's been great finals over the years, of course, but what you want in a game if you're a neutral is ebb and flow, one team up, the other team coming back, something you don't expect, and 1 or 2 names taking charge and becoming that level again in the game. And I think if you're ticking all those boxes, that this did that, right?
Oh, 100%. Like, the run, let's talk about the run. I think, 11 out of 13 wins on the back end of the competition to get the final. Should never have got to the final. That Canberra game in the first one, shouldn't have won that. And Reece Walsh in the sin bin, they're down by, 1,000 points with only minutes to go, and he comes in and wins that, and they have the week off. Again, win it just, and then go into the final, and everyone's back in Melbourne who go out to a 22-10 lead at half time, and you think they got it tied up. But again, the people that stuck next to Reece Walsh, I've got to say this, it stuck next to Reece Walsh, it stuck next to Brisbane, truly saw, arguably, in my time, the best grand final performance by one person.
I didn't. I wrote them off. When they were 6 and 7, they were going through that rut, and all of a sudden out came all the thing about the nightclubs again and the painted fingernails, and they're all bitching about Madge because he trained them too hard at the beginning of the season and all of this. They were gone, mate. They were down and out at that stage.
And there's a couple of stories in that, like Gordy Tallis, who's a great man, good friend, wrote them all off. He had no time for them. And mainly around the way that they got rid of Kevy Walters. And his argument is, if Kevy Walters was here, could he get them to that step? And sometimes it takes another person to take him that step further. And so it is Madge that gets there. And I always said this, like watching the NRL, man, there's some luck in the NRL.
God, well,
You need an ounce of luck, and you just so happen to get a 23-year-old in a 28 to 30-year-old body. His balance, his strength alongside his speed, like that try he scored, will go down in history as one of the greatest, as good as Stacey Jones' try in 2002. He just took off from the right-hand side to go down that left edge, to run through the middle, over the fullback, score next to the post, get him back into the game. But it wasn't the attack that got him. For me, the biggest play of that game for Reece Walsh was in the last 40 seconds.
The right-hand side, where he stops.
They've gone down there, and again, we spoke about this. You got Elise Couture, the best player for Melbourne.
Yeah, brilliant.
That the
first
Warriors
half,
had. Reece Walsh, the best player for Melbourne that the Warriors had.
Yeah.
Up against each other, and he takes a punt. Because if you look at Peppenhausen, I don't think either the winger or the cover get to Peppenhausen if he gets a clear run at the try line with 40 seconds to go. And he takes a... And this is my point about Reece Walsh and Rocks and Diamonds. He just backs himself. He'll throw that pass, he'll make that run, and he decided to take the early Peppenhausen on a prayer that Couture was going to pass the football, and he did. And that basically won him the game.
You're talking about instinct, aren't you? You're talking about somebody that has a natural feel for the game.
Which is something that's not in the game, Marty. Like when you see natural footballers these days, because it's so robotic. You're looking at players who, back in the old Winfield Cup days, it was all talent. It wasn't so structured. But these days, it's so robotic and structured. When you see Reece Walsh play, it's a breath of fresh air, because the kid's just playing off the back of
he looks like he's playing backyard or beach, doesn't he? He looks like he's actually having that much fun. And I've been critical of him because I've thought he's lost his way and kind of questioned his commitment at times. But sometimes you need somebody to put their hand up and shine. And for a 23-year-old, you just imagine what the inspiration that he has given every other one of those guys in that team. Because maybe it's the naivety of youth, Tony. I mean, you remember what it's like when you're 23. You're bulletproof. You can do anything in the world, can't you? No one can tell you no, because every answer to yourself is yes. Maybe it's something to do with that as well.
Oh, he's had to grow up really quickly. Like he was a bit of a handful here at the Warriors. I remember commentating down with Sammy Hewitt down at the Warriors game, especially I think it was the last one he got sin bin. He's acting like a pork chop on the sideline, trying to tell the coach, "I'm back on. Don't worry about what the coach is saying." And he was a bit of a problem child, but he's had those issues. Like he had the issue up on the Gold Coast Strip.
We got arrested.
And he's had a number of those, and he's only 23. But I was saying to Lockie, like the kid, to me, the only, I guess from Brisbane, like how could have Brisbane gone? They win the AFL.
Yeah.
The Burleigh Bears come in, they lose to the Warriors. That was a great win by the Warriors by 50. The women win it for Brisbane, and the men win it for Brisbane, and they win State of Origin for Queensland. And I'm going to back a Queensland horse in the Melbourne Cup in a couple of weeks' time if there's one, because they seem to be winning anything. But I was saying to Lockie, like the closest I can think about in my time, because a lot of our listeners, especially the younger ones, they all go back to maybe Stacey Jones when he, at the back end of his career. Like they don't go back to the 80s when Wally Lewis played and Mel Meninga, that great Origin side with Beatson and Gene Miles, the Dale Shearers that could just, on a flip of a turn. Yeah, it was just, you look at those games, and then when you're walking into Suncorp Stadium, which is the old Lang Park, because again, it was Lang Park, that place was the cauldron, they called it. And Wally Lewis is out there in a bronze statue. Like, this kid's 23. And for me, he's emulated the following, because I've never seen an individual from Brisbane be followed like Reece Walsh. And you're talking about some great players that have gone between Wally. and Reece Walsh. You know,
He's brought in a demographic as well that perhaps wasn't as interested in league. He's certainly brought in the female audience, hasn't he? And he's got all of that going from, I mean, God, if the guy was half good looking at everything going from, wouldn't he? But look, you know, do they deserve to win this? When you look at the totality of the whole season, and right at the beginning, you're picking Melbourne, Penrith, and Brisbane were in the conversation, but I don't know how many of us actually genuinely thought that they were going to win this. Do they deserve to win this after everything that you've seen?
Well, it's hard to say no, they don't deserve it, Marty. You know, like they've had one hell of a run through the final series alone. A lot of people don't remember the beginning of the year. They'll only remember. I'll tell you what, no one's going to forget this final series, because if you watched it from when the finals kicked off in their first game against Canberra to winning that grand final, you aren't going to forget any one of those games, because each one of those games, if you were a Brisbane supporter, and I remember the game that they played up in Brisbane against Penrith. Like, I was there when the Warriors played Penrith to get into the grand final, played Brisbane again in the grand final. And I thought Suncorp that night was phenomenal. Like, the crowd, it wasn't sold out, it was nearly sold out. But I'm watching it at home here in Auckland, and you can tell it's sold out. Like, there's not a seat anywhere, and the noise, and you're just going, man, this kid single-handedly has, like, if you're the NRL, for instance, if you're Peter V'landys and Abdo, you're going, mate, I don't care who you are, but wrap this kid up. Like, I'll give you an example. So he gets the shoulder charge. It's a 10-minute sin bin at least.
Should have been.
All right, Harry Grant gets sent 2 weeks for that, only a few weeks earlier, before the final series starts. He does exactly the same shot. He gets, I'm going to put you on report. And then he gets an opportunity to pay a $3,000 fine because he's got a Kangaroo jersey to go up and win the Ashes.
Right.
So if you're the Kangaroo coach, what are you saying to the judiciary? Do not send him packing for 3 weeks, because we need him to play in that Ashes series and win it for us. And when you're asking, do they deserve it? I think, you know, when you're watching, we're actually privileged. In my time, I've only seen a few of them. I saw Ellery Hanley up in the UK and got to play with him. I saw Mark Graham here in New Zealand. I saw him play against Wally Lewis, and now I'm witnessing something absolutely phenomenal at 23 called Reece Walsh.
What can he do? He's got 10 years ahead of him. Okay, you've got Nathan Cleary as well, who's obviously, you know, everyone considers probably the best player in the world.
Again, Nathan's in a different position, isn't he? Like, although arguably that 12 minutes that he had in the grand final to win it for Penrith was as good, but we're talking about efforts over 4 games.
Yeah, it's
like
incredible.
Like that, I thought when I watched the Canberra game, I don't know how many people I told, I said, I've just witnessed the best 16 minutes from a footballer in my life. Like, no way in the world did I think they could come back from Brisbane, and he's gone and done that.
I go back to a try he scored, and I think it was against the Knights in one of those last couple of round robin games where he takes it in his own half, about the 30-metre line, and if you look at the field like this, he was over here, and he came this way, and then he swerved back that way, and then he curved around this way and scored. And it was just sheer pace, body movement, hips.
Balance and speed.
Balance and speed, yeah, exactly.
Balance and speed, you know. Martin O'Fire, you give him the football with balance and speed. Jonathan Davies, a small guy. You know, we're talking to guys that are slight. Jonathan Davies came from rugby union, went to Widnes, played against them in '89 on the tour, and just thought, who's this little whippersnipper, mate? Watched them for the next 10 years. Couldn't catch him. Like, you blokes are telling go and smash that guy. You couldn't catch him. And I think one of the telling points on the grand final was that Melbourne said, you know, Bellyache comes out the back of him and asks him, is there anything that you could have done different to stop Reece Walsh? Like, when you're talking about one player, and he said, well, they could have tackled him.
Yeah, good, great quote from him as always, isn't it?
I know,
but that's the problem, though, isn't it? They couldn't actually get near him.
You can have a plan, but you still have to tackle him. And it's not as if he wasn't putting his body on the line and running into space. He was running through people, you know.
Do we regret the fact that he's not here in Auckland?
Oh, look, I think you're naive not to say that you had an opportunity to seal the deal with. I'm not just talking about Reece Walsh, but you're talking about the other guy on the right edge with Eli Katoa. You know, and they're things that you would lie in bed at night kicking yourself.
But would they have stayed? Would Walsh have stayed? I mean, I don't know whether Auckland is big enough and the Warriors I hate to say this, but I don't know whether they're big enough for him. You imagine Brisbane, which is like 3 or 4 times the size of Auckland. I mean, that's a guy like that. Does he need a bigger market to play in than this market?
Well, it's pretty polarising, isn't it, Marty, when you look at it that way, because it sort of gives you a look at where players want to go to compared to where they want to come to.
Sure.
So
that's reality, though, mate.
It is the reality of New Zealand being such a small, cold, wet winter. And Australia, Brisbane, 40,000 people watching every Friday night games.
Yeah.
Now they're the champions. So would you not think that there's 16 other teams, including the Perth Bears? What would you do if you're the Perth Bears right now? You know what I mean?
He's going to be...
You would be throwing everything at the kid.
Yeah, look, it takes a player sometimes to almost elevate a whole sport, doesn't it? And when he first appeared for the Warriors... Just remember the excitement machine that he was. And I remember the talk about those players were saying to the coach, look, you got to play him. And actually Roger said, I'll move to the wing so he can play. That's how excited they were about him then. I go back to that time and think he was only 18, wasn't he?
Well, he's only 23 now, so it was at a time when he just come. You got to remember too that he wasn't in the Brisbane squad. He was sitting in the Queensland Cup.
Yeah, that's why he decided to come over.
So you kick yourself. There's plenty of those stories though, Marty. Like you can't sit here now and go, you've got to kick yourself over spilt milk because it's already done. It's about where does the next one come from. That, and again, when you're watching something like that, you're thinking, this is the best that I'm going to ever see. And I don't know how many times I said that. Okay,
well, let's look at the 18-year-olds for a start. Brad Fittler, when he started playing, right? I think Bradley Clyde. People forget him, Tony. And I think he was one of the best league players that I've ever seen. And I've only been watching it since the late 80s. But that guy was 18 at the time, right? And when you think of these guys, just think about yourself, people at 18 years old. What were you doing at 18? Then you're playing a man's game in that competition where with all the scrutiny on you as well. And so I'm delighted for him, the maturity aspect that's happened. I wonder having, his daughter as well has helped him along those lines. But when he left Auckland and he went back to went back to Brisbane, I was sour as a Warriors fan. I was sour about that. And I did question whether or not he had it up here to be able to make it. Well, all of those questions have been answered now, haven't they? Well, because what he had to do was prove it on the grass more than anything else.
Yeah, well, he's gone out there and he's got it. Like there's a few other accolades that he has to get. Lewis has done everything and he's got a bronze statue outside Suncorp Stadium. But when you're naming those type of players, the thing with that type of player is that as the games get bigger, he gets better.
Yeah, it's a great call.
So it's like Lewis. He comes in, he's playing club football in Queensland. Comes through, plays in an Origin game and comes through, plays for the Broncos and goes on to be Australian captain and is the greatest player that we've ever seen, arguably. The Reece Walsh is on that trajectory. So the only thing you've got to worry about now, given that, Wally didn't have mobile phones or the scrutiny back then, even though he had such a high profile, what Reece Walsh has to deal with today, given that it is 24/7 for him because he's in the public eye.
He wants to be. You can't say he doesn't enjoy it either. He puts himself out there as far as that.
Can he? And this is where your respect is for people that are involved in the game for donkey's years, like Lewis is. Like they make a career out of it. Like Reece Walsh can now make a career out of rugby league if he follows the correct path. And he's got a hell of a job trying to stay on the straight and narrow because he's going to get a heap of temptation thrown at him.
Every single temptation you can imagine. And a young man in Brisbane for a start. I mean, you don't have to use your imagination much to figure that bit out, do you?
Yeah, and I hope for the life of me that he's got some really good support around him because he's right in his. They're talking the R360 at the moment. Like
please,
top of your list is Reece Walsh.
No, great.
Whether you got rugby heads are saying no international football or not, I'll tell you. I will just talk briefly about that, Marty, because rugby league and rugby union are under pressure at the moment from the R360. Players are different. I'm telling you that right now. School players in New Zealand, like. I'm talking 15 years ago, would not even touch rugby league. Okay, school kids would, if they're playing for a rugby school team, would not even touch rugby league. I guarantee you now, most kids that are playing first 15 in the top, what do they call them, the top 8?
Yeah, top. Yeah.
If they get a contract from a Melbourne or Brisbane, for instance, and want to be a next Reece Walsh, they're gone. They're not worried about the New Zealand Rugby Union.
Well, thank God for R360. so many countries, I think 10 of them have signed a thing saying you go to R360, you don't play internationals anymore. And that will kill it dead. And thank God for that.
No, you're dreaming. You are absolutely dreaming.
Mate, who wants to watch? Do you want to watch it? Do you want to watch a whole lot of has-beens play for the Texas tugboaters against the London lollylickers, mate? I couldn't give a shite about it.
I don't think anyone really worries about the purist who likes to watch rugby, Marty. I think what the players especially are going to worry about is that in such a short period of time, being a footballer over 10 years, this one that's just come out for Payne Haas at the moment. I'm going to entertain a R360 contract. He's asking for $3 million a year. Now it's similar to the
somebody's got to watch it, Tony.
Mate, it's quite simply similar to the Super League ARL wars, where all of a sudden players they went, well, I'm actually getting paid for the next 5 years in one season.
No, I get all the money side of it, but hey, you've got all of these oil wells.
Where are all the boxes gone?
They're just pumping out cash, mate, the whole time, right? And so if that's what you want for your sport, well, then they can buy every sport in the world if they want. They've tried it with golf, though, and what's happened? The public hasn't bought it. Now, they've tried it with football. They tried to get a Super League going in Europe. The public just reacted really badly to it. You know, it won't infiltrate American sport because they're all owned by billionaires. They don't give a... They've got enough money of their own. But as far as you have to have an audience, look, they've done this silly T20 cricket in America, right? And they're trying to get that off the ground. Sure, the players go over there and they earn a lot of money. You tell me one person in the world that knows one result from any of those games. These guys have all got egos. They don't want to play in front of an empty stadium with 0 ratings, mate. It does affect them. Okay, you can have all the money in the bank in the world, but how many premierships do you have at the end of the day? These things still count.
Do you think that...
They've got to count.
Do you think that when Murdoch and Packer had the scrap back in the old days, that the same questions were raised, that you don't want to play in an ARL competition versus a Super League competition, that travelled up to England to play Super League games and no one's going to watch it and stuff like that? My point being, Marty, that at the end of the day...
merged.
Yes, but what at the end of the day, I'm saying, where this conversation started with, they're different these days. The Wally Lewises of the year of the 80s compared to the Reece Walshes today are different.
I know.
It's a different.
I get it.
It's a totally different.
I get it. Look, and I'm old, and my views don't count because it's not my world anymore.
No.
I understand that, but it doesn't stop me feeling the way that I feel about it.
Yeah, and being a purist, you would feel that way. But to me, when I'm watching this play out in the background, they're a pinch away from stealing a name or half a dozen names before. It's like a story I heard about, Chief Harrigan loading up a van of Newcastle boys and rolling them into the ARL headquarters and signing them all up to contracts. They're a pinch away for doing that. And I think we just have to be aware these days that when you say they're not going to play international football, players actually don't care about international football. What they care about is being paid.
Yeah, okay. And look, and a whole lot of rugby league guys going to play a hybrid rugby competition with a whole lot of guys that, honestly, the quality of it, everything else, yeah, good luck to it if that's the case. And if people want to go do it, I'm never going to say, hey, don't take the money. Because if we were offered the money, I'd take the money, of course. And I understand all of that side.
And they'll take the money, they'll play for 2 years and 3 years and come back and merge the competitions back together and away they go again. But what they've earned in those 3 years, like live golfers, like the boxers are doing, just sets them up for
generational
life.
wealth.
That's what the issue is.
Let's finish on the international season. Yesterday I went out to NZRL HQ and interviewed Stacey and Erin Clark, and those interviews we're going to have on the podcast next week. We play Toa Samoa on the 19th. Then we have a week's break. We play Tonga, which is not Mate Ma'a Tonga now, just Tonga. And then, of course, if we make the final, we play the final. And then, as you say, Aussie are playing the Ashes up in England. A lot of questions to Stacey yesterday about eligibility and about players declaring that they will now play for what were Tier 2 nations. Do you know what I like? I like the fact that we're not going to talk about Tier 2 nations anymore. We're going to talk about Samoa and Tonga alongside New Zealand, alongside England or Great Britain or whatever, alongside Australia. That's got to be a big plus, doesn't it, for International Rugby League? Isn't that what 100%. The whole point of it was?
Oh, absolutely. Like, to get rid of the tier systems because they're just a load of garbage, and the going back to the Origin series, like it's so intricate. Like you can play Origin and then go back and play Tier 2 because you're not, it's affected for the Origin. The Luais and the Crichtons and the likes. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at football, like you look at the Tongan and the Samoan team, mate. Geez, they're good.
Yeah,
they are like
stacked,
you're looking at them and you're going, well, if I'm Samoan or Tongan heritage, of course I want to try and get in that team because now it's stacked. It's absolutely stacked. And the team that suffers the most, and it was always going to happen, were the Kiwis.
Yeah, that's what Stacey said yesterday as well.
So the Kiwis are the team because of how or lack of development we have in this country, and the pathways through the school systems in Australia, and all of the NRL clubs just pilfering our players and scooping them up and taking Aussie to play, now is starting to show how much effect it actually has on the Kiwi team, because most of those players that you're picking for Tonga or Samoa, you could pick in the New Zealand team. You know, you go right back to Jason Tomolola, who played out here, South Auckland. You know, so but for me, I'm a real supporter that you play for your country. You know, so whether it's New Zealand, Tonga, Samoa, I've had the argument with Kevin Ero, who was in town 2 weeks ago. You know, he said he was waiting on a player to commit because he didn't know whether he was going to get selected in a tier, a different tier. And I was like, don't pick him. Like, if he doesn't want to play for you, don't. Yeah, that's my mentality. Like, pick people that want to play for your country. Yeah, you know, like so. It's a bit of a like, there's no other word. It's a shit fight at the moment for the New Zealand team. Where they end up in 10 years' time, I think what happens is they get rid of the tier system and create a international game. Like, create windows. You know, have standalone Origin windows, have standalone international windows, and probably play them at the same time and clear up the because it should not be called State of Origin, it should be called Country of Origin, because there's so many Pacific players playing in there. Pick the best out of the NRL to play in your Country of Origin, and then play your internationals in the same window where everyone has that
You've
that
got to
time
keep
off.
it alive. This whole thing about international league. Look, just being in that building, and I don't know whether last time we went up there, but when you're walking on the ground floor, there's kind of like the museum.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh,
the biggest kept secret in the world.
Oh, mate, I tell you what, I just was wandering through just aghast, and every picture and everything was, you know, there's a bit of a turnstile from Carlo Park, and then you go back through the Māori thing and the women thing and the referees thing and the 20s and the 30s and things. It honestly, like, it takes your breath away. The memories that are out there.
Yeah, it is
beautiful, mate.
Like, I don't know how many people I've told this, but if you ever get a chance and you go to a Warriors game, like the New Zealand Rugby League's just down the road on Beasley Ave, phone up and say you want to pop in and have a look at the museum. It takes you right back to when the game kicked off in 1907 to them still building that museum today. Yeah, you know what I mean. So
some of the old photos are just like, honestly, and the jerseys and things and the people and
and on the jersey, like, where's the V?
I know.
Mate,
I know.
Seriously,
I was talking to both those lads yesterday, saying, "Where's my the white
you
V?"
look like a soccer player. Seriously, like, don't give me a black jersey. You look like you're playing tennis. Put a V on your jersey.
Yeah, the Kiwis always had the white V.
That is the worst jersey I have seen. Seriously, for me, being a league man, the V was that's identity.
Yeah,
like, stop playing around with rugby league's identity.
I hate it when they do the All Blacks thing as well, mate. Just leave it like it friggin' is.
Exactly.
You know? All right.
Exactly.
Tony, it's been a pleasure all year, mate. We'll be back in touch, obviously, during this international season.
Yeah, no worries at all, Marty. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed the commentary, like, from the boys, especially Lockie and his support around Brisbane. Great win. I was going to absolutely cane him too.
Yeah, of course. You know, I was so looking forward to it if they'd lost and that you'd come in here and just give it to him.
I actually started writing my script at half time. I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I started laughing with, like, you know, Reece gets him in front and I'm like, actually, they've just one try away from just burying me. But no, Marty, it's been great. I've had a great year. Looking forward to it. Hope the Warriors build in the off season. But I'll tell you what the Broncos showed you is that, mate, dreams do come true. You know, 11th in the middle of the season and have the run like that in the final series. Mate, who picked them?
This is the DSPN.